From dreams to keys in just 3 months, I'm going to reveal to you the secret sauce to get you from house hunter to homeowner. Discover the ultimate game plan for buying your first home and making home ownership a reality for you and your family. Hello, my name is Alicia Walker, and I'm a licensed real estate agent and founder of Wesley Dean Solutions, a financial consulting company where we help individuals like yourself navigate the world of personal finances and credit. I talk about real estate, personal finance, and self-development for millennials and first-time homebuyers. All right, guys, let's get into it. Expect the best, prepare for the worst, and capitalize on what comes. So this is a quote from Zig Ziglar. Lead with optimism. So for me, that's lead with optimism, planning ahead, and then also taking action. You don't want to be pessimistic in your search and in your journey. You want to start with optimism and then just planning ahead and taking action. So always keep that in mind. And that's just not with home buying, but that's just with anything that you do. Prepare your mindset. Avoid Zillow doom scrolling. Don't sit on Zillow for 8,000 years. I know I used to be guilty of it too. Sitting on Zillow, dreaming about all the homes that you want to purchase eventually, but not doing anything. Avoid that, and then avoid just fear mongering. Individuals who are speaking of, oh, the housing crash, the crash is coming down. I see it all the time on YouTube. I watch it a lot. I follow a lot of real estate individuals, and sometimes there's this habit of creating fear. The media is notorious for creating fear. That's because they would like you to come back and watch news and keep searching. Don't pay attention to it. While there is some truth in some of the numbers and some of the things they may say, it's not as bad as you think, and there's always a way. It's always a way to get to where you need to be. And then what you should be doing, planning ahead, be ready to take action. The market waits for no one. So as long as you have a plan and just be ready to pull the trigger when you see that home, you're good to go. Like, you should be good to go. So planning ahead is going to be the most important thing. And then once you find that home, you're ready to go. All right, so let's jump into the 3-month game plan. All right, so 3 to 4 months is the average timeline for most buyers to purchase a home. So that's on average. I have it broken down, and we'll go into these steps a little bit further. Planning, 10 days. Shopping, 50 days. This is going to be the longest period, but that's like the fun period because you get to go and look at houses. Close, on average, should be about 30 days. And then I added what's called a forecasting plan because, again, being an analyst, I just had to throw in forecasting, and we'll go into that. I would like to say this because I didn't say it before. This 3-month game plan is more so for individuals who do have savings, who do have some type of idea of where they want to be in terms of purchasing a home and has already started the process somewhat. So you have some savings in place, your credit is decent, and you can actually make a move tomorrow if you wanted to. For those who are not at that plan, or not at this stage yet, I recommend, and I put 6 to 12 months, but I'm just going to go ahead and increase to give yourself some time because you don't want to put pressure or unnecessary pressure on yourself. Add an additional 12 to 24 months if you don't have any savings or anything available today. Give yourself some time to come up with savings. There are ways to avoid paying through down payment assistance programs and seller concessions, but I always advise to at least have 7 to 10% saved as a first-time home buyer, just because you never know what funds you may need. Ideally, as realtors, our first goal is to get you in that home as affordable and as low out of your pocket as possible. But sometimes things happen and you want to be prepared. All right, so thinking ahead, this is your forecasting phase. I put no limit here because honestly, you can take as much time as you need to walk through and navigate through this stage. But really, what you want to do is think about your next 2 to 3 years. Where do you see yourself? Job stability. Do you expect to retire? Hopefully not. But if you're going into retirement, are you expecting to retire? Are you expecting promotions? Are you in graduate school and you see some skill development that may just give you a higher increase or pay increase? Anything. You want to be able to include that in your future plans, as well as income projections. And actually, that is my fault, guys. This income projections is what I was just speaking on. So, retirement and promotions and leveling up skills to increase your pay is here. This year, job stability. Do you plan to stay at your job? Are you planning to become an entrepreneur? What are your plans? Are you planning to switch industries, stay in the same industry? Make sure you pay attention to that because lenders typically like to see you in a particular industry for a minimum of 2 years or so. So, So you can switch jobs, but try to keep that same job within the same industry. And if you are planning to retire or go into entrepreneurship, just go ahead and try to purchase that home. If you're in the position, purchase that home while you're a W 2 employee, just to make the process a little bit simpler. Not saying it's going to be easy, but sometimes the process can be a little bit cleaner if you have some type of stable job history or just history in general. Savings and investment patterns. Are you planning to save for kids' college? Are you planning to increase your 401k, your IRA? Are you planning to do anything that's going to alter the amount of, or basically take away from your income by through savings and investment? And then debts. Do you have any credit card debts that are rolling off or rolling on? School loans, auto loans. Something to keep in mind with auto loans is some investors, if this auto loan has in 12 months left on the auto loan agreement, if it's less than 12 months of payments remaining, then they won't count that towards your debt to income ratio. So that's something to keep in mind. For auto loans with less than 12 months remaining on payments, some lenders will not take that into account on your debt to income ratio. And then lifestyle. So marriage and kids. Are you planning to start a family? Are you thinking about kids or thinking about marriage? And then also, because this, I mean, you're thinking about space at this point, and then possible locations of schools and such. And then schools and tuition. Are you planning to go to school? Are you planning to take on tuition? Also, we all know that school loans are coming back due October 1st for many individuals. So that could definitely affect your debt to income ratio. So those are all some things that you want to think about as you're forecasting what your future income and expenses will look like. All right, so the planning phase. Start with what you can afford. Day one, use your budget to determine what's working and what's not working. Keyword here, budget. Whatever budget that you have in place, it could be anything. Really popular budget plan is the 50-30-20 rule. This says that 50% of your necessities, 50% of your income is allocated towards your necessities. Those are things that are basically fixed bills, such as auto loans, rent, anything fixed. 50% goes to that. 30% goes to wants, 20% savings, investing. So this is just basically an allocation for your income that's coming in. And these are your buckets that you have. Whatever budget that you have, you could be 75, 15, 5, however you want to split it out. That's, my allocations that I use personally, just because I have some different goals. And that 15%, mine is more so taken away from some of my wants and being heavily allocated towards savings and investing. So whatever budget that you have, you just want to determine what's working, what's not working. If you need to cut bills, go ahead and cut some of those bills, especially thinking about things like the gym, subscription. Everything is subscription based right now, and I even have to find myself going back just about every month or every other month, just reviewing those things because man, they can eat into your budget big time. So those are some things to think about. All right, so day two, starting with the pre-approval with your mortgage lender. I always recommend speaking to three or more mortgage lenders, and you want to make sure that you speak with individuals who you want to. So first off, there are a few things that you want to know. So first off, you want to verify when you're going to see your mortgage lender, you want to verify that you can qualify for a mortgage. This is important here, the pre-approval, when it comes to submitting an offer. So typically when I submit offers for my clients, I like to include the pre-approval because it just shows that you're a serious buyer and that you've already spoken with the lender and that you have some funds available to go in and purchase this home. Now, it doesn't mean that you've fully qualified for the mortgage, but it means that you have spoken with your lender and given some type of preliminary items for them to review, and they've given you a conditional pre-approval based on that information. So those are things such as your credit, your W-2s, tax returns. That's usually about 2 years. Credit. Your bank statements, typically 2 months. For entrepreneurs, that can be 1 month, just depending on what type of loan. If you're doing like a bank statement loan, that could be just 1 month. Bank statements, some lenders will give that. And I believe that is everything. Oh, and pay stubs. And it's usually your 2 previous pay periods. So these are some of the upfront documents that you'll provide your lender. So when speaking with lenders, you want to make sure that someone who's going to, that you actually vibe with, that you can communicate, and someone who is familiar with or has the loan products that you're looking for. So they should be able to explain to you the different type of loan products available from their company, and you want to also want to be sure or double check how much it's going to cost you to borrow that money. Since a lot of lending companies, that's how they make their money, is on discount points charged from them originating a loan for you as a buyer. Those are some things you want to pay attention to. You also want to pay attention to the different loan types and loan products available. Not every lender is created equal. So these are questions that you want to ask your buyer now. I'm sorry, your lender. So some of the loan types that you will come across is going to be conventional. Conventional loans are as close or as just as good as cash. The next best thing is cash. Cash is always going to be king typically in real estate transactions because they're pretty seamless transactions where you're not dealing with a lending company. Typically, it's just going to be direct between the buyer and the seller, and you're able to close faster because you don't have to go through this whole full process that you would have to do when you're getting underwritten for a loan from a lender. So you have conventional, FHA, which are government-backed loans, typically good for first-time homebuyers with lower credit scores. And let's just talk about credit scores for a second. 620 on average for conventional, minimum. These are minimum. 580 for FHA. You also have VA loans, which are military individuals, veterans, but then also USDA loans, which these are more so for loans originated for areas that are considered rural. Many individuals don't pay attention to this particular loan, but it could be very beneficial. There are some areas that so when you think in rural, most individuals are automatically going to assume in country areas that are completely outside the city, but there are some areas, especially I know here in the Atlanta area, the metro Atlanta area where I'm out of, there are some areas that sit on the outskirts of the city, maybe 30-40 minutes, that do qualify for USDA loans. And again, these are attractive because they offer 0% down payment, and these can really get your foot in the door for a lower cost, and you can build up some equity in those homes and then turn around and become a level up buyer and get into a home that's closer or in the city. So you have to be strategic sometimes when it comes to considering your first time home buying options. And then also for VA or veterans, these loans are often 0% as well. So take advantage of those. If you're a veteran or someone who's in the military, take advantage. I have a old college roommate who also served in the military, and she bought her first properties well in her 20s and was able to buy properties in each city and go from there. And she was able to sell as she needed to sell or keep them as investment properties. And she built a decent portfolio. So you have your options. And then also on this with this pre-approval and speaking with your lender, you also will get an estimate of your numbers up front. So you'll get an idea of what your monthly mortgage payment could look like based on current interest rates. Now, again, it's going to be an estimate because there are several other or numbers such as your taxes and fees to close that are estimates and aren't completely final yet. And you'll also have an estimate of what your down payment could look like based on all of these various factors that were provided and the loan product that you have. So those are some things to keep in mind with your mortgage lender. So you want to make sure you speak with at least three. I like to recommend, and then just make sure, and then look at also what kind of rates they're offering. So again, all lenders are not equal. They offer different rates. They offer different loan packages. So keep that in mind. All right. Next thing you want to do is decide what you want. So you want to choose your realtor. So your power team in this whole process is going to be your lender and your realtor. Your realtor is going to be someone that you know, or someone that you know, like, or should be. It may not always be, but someone that you know, like, and trust. Someone who's going to work on your behalf, because let's face it, this is going to be the largest investment that many of you will make in your lifetime. So you want to make sure it's someone who's knowledgeable, knows how to navigate contracts, knows how to read and understand. They read and understand contracts, able to navigate the process, negotiate on your behalf. They know the market and just know the ins and outs of real estate. Someone who's going to be able to communicate and communicate clearly and effectively and explain the steps of the process to you, walk you through the process, and answer any questions. No question is dumb, no question is stupid. Ask as many questions as possible, because that is the point. I literally became a realtor because I had never seen the process myself. Of course, I lived in a house. We lived in the suburbs. I grew up in a house, coming up, but I didn't see them purchase that home. I didn't see my family purchase that home. And then eventually we ended up staying in an apartment and just didn't see any home ownership. So I wanted to understand the process for myself, because I had dreams of one day being an investor as well. And then I just wanted to understand the process. And that in turn, I wanted to go out and help others understand the process. So this is really why I got into the business of real estate. And then also, you just want to make sure you're working with someone that's integral, someone who, again, someone that you can trust, and someone who's going to do the right thing even when no one else is looking. So those are some things to pay attention to. And then again, you want to create your needs versus your wants list. Allow room for future growth. And this also includes your budget. Don't become house poor. Just because you got approved for a $500,000 home does not mean you should buy a $500,000 home. Always allow yourself some room to grow, and allow some room in your budget. Don't overextend yourself if it's not necessary. So that's something to think about. It's now, as far as your needs and your wants list, I always recommend my clients create their top three must-haves and absolute nots. So this is going to be like amenities and absolute no's. Absolute no's. So these are going to be your, like, any amenities. You may want to stay in a certain community or a school district. You may want a garage large yard, covered backyard, anything. So create the three must-haves, like things that you just absolutely can't live without, and then three just absolute no's. Like if it's here, like it's not happening. Like if it has this, nah, it's not happening. This helps your realtor start to narrow down. It helps you. It helps your realtor, but it also helps you as well start to narrow down your search, because once you really get into that shopping phase, once you kind of gotten once you've gotten an estimate from your lender, you have an idea where your budget's going to be, the budget that you've been pre-approved for. You're gonna be like a kid in a candy store when you first start. You're not gonna know what areas you want to stay in, and you have to start somewhere to start narrowing down that search. This allows you to start to pinpoint that search and get a little bit closer to your dream home. If you're like driving in all these different areas, it's going to be very hard for you and your realtor to make any headway into your search process. So create that needs versus wants list. It is super important for narrowing down your search. All right, plan your exit. This is days 5 through 10. So plan your exit from your current home. And really just got two options if you're tied up into a lease or you already currently own a home. So if you're in a current lease, you're staying in an apartment or leasing some kind of a townhome or something, just go ahead and make the remaining payments on your lease. If you feel like you just can't take it anymore, or you just gotten extra excited, you can negotiate a buyout on your lease. Now, I suggest only doing this if it is necessary, or you are just an excellent negotiator, however you want to take it. I just don't believe in paying extra money if if there's no need to. So oftentimes when you're buying out a lease, they're going to ask for market rent, and they possibly are going to ask for the remaining months on the lease, or for 2 to 3 months, or whatever number they come up with or decide, or whatever it is that your lease actually says. So I don't believe in spending that money if it's not necessary. I just say be patient, wait it out, let the lease naturally expire, and give you 60 days, just like normal. Because that saves money and allows you to put more money towards your down payment and just towards the buying the home. So again, this is only if it's necessary that I do recommend doing this. And then as a current owner, I would say plan to sell. Go ahead and put that home on the market even prior to going out, because it helps to have that home under contract before you actually put another home on contract. But I would say just start to do this process kind of in the same time. You can always provide a contingency plan. So let's just say you did go out and purchase a home. You found that home, you get it under contract, and you this home happens to just be on contingent of the sale of your current home, because you may need those funds from the sale of your current home to use as a down payment towards your future home. It looks better to go ahead and have that home under contract or on the market, so that it shows that that home can close on or before you close on your future home. So that's something to keep in mind. You do have options to sell at the same time that you're looking for a new home. All right, so here comes the fun part: shopping. The shopping phase. So this is going to be day 11 plus. So again, you've already gone through your lender, you've spoken with them, you've gotten your estimated budget. So you're going to communicate that to your realtor, your budget dollar estimate, and you have your pre-approval letter, which would include that, I guess. Yep, you have your pre-approval letter, your top 3 list of must-haves and must-nots, location, and any amenities or anything that you are looking for. You want to have this conversation with your agent, express everything that it is that you're hoping for throughout this search. Just communicate any needs and ask any questions that you need to upfront. Your agent also will provide, or should provide, you access to the multiple listing services available in your area. This gives you quicker access to homes before you get to your Zillow. So I know I have a lot of clients who still like to send me homes from Zillow because they've been going through Zillow because, and I get it, it's just because that's what they're used to. But MLS Access also provides you that same speed. As soon as a home comes on the market, you should be able to get that home in your feed ASAP. MLS Access, realistically search for homes online. You have a budget available. So you already know your budget at this point. Go in now and realistically search based on that budget. Now, I will say this, although you do have a budget, let's just say your budget is $250,000. I'll still set that search up for 250 to 275K, just because there's always room to negotiate. Everything is negotiable, and there are always some room to negotiate. I had a client who we were able to negotiate close to $50,000 off the price of her home. You do still have some room to negotiate. And again, it depends on each market. And I know some of you guys might be looking at this number. If you're in like California, New York, you're like, man, where is 275,000? That's a box. Right. I'm located in Georgia, and I'm just using kind of general numbers from Georgia. So I understand that different markets offer different prices, different budgets. So yeah, I also recommend that you visit at least one open house. It just gives you an idea of the location that you may prefer to stay in. You have the ability to walk some of the neighborhoods. And again, this all just helps with narrowing your search. You're able to go in, look at the amenities that are offered in different homes. And again, I would just make sure that this open house is a home that is within your budget and something that you would be interested in viewing, especially in a particular location that you're interested in. So it gives you an idea to actually be able to go out and check out the surrounding areas as well, just to understand. Maybe you want to know how close you are to the grocery store, just anything that you want to know. And sometimes I always like to suggest that you visit like neighborhoods and areas at once at night and once during the day, because I like to be able to see what's going on in the neighborhood at all times, just to get an idea of like what to expect. That's something that I do like to recommend for clients. All right, next, you're gonna make an offer, and you're only going to do this when you're ready. So this process is called being under contract, and we have a whole process for that. So the very first thing you're going to do is submit an offer, but we have this is how the process works, and we'll just kind of cover some of the process. So you're going to have what's called a purchase and order contract. So you've gone through, you searched through these homes, and now you are ready to make an offer. Well, your realtor is going to then go back and fill out a purchase order contract, and it includes all of the terms, key terms and details regarding the offer of the purchase price of that property. It includes things such as the legal description. And also some key points that you want to include, or that will be included, are most important, are going to be the purchase price of that home, which is going to be the price that you're offering to purchase their home for. Earnest deposit. I typically like to recommend at least 1% of the purchase price for earnest deposit. This is going to be a deposit that is upfront. It's usually what's called a good faith deposit, and it just means that you are a serious buyer and that you have intent to purchase this home. Now, you as a buyer, it is totally up to you what percent you would like to offer, or what amount you would like to offer the seller. I just like to recommend 1%, but it could be very well less than that, or it could be more than that. I know when we were in the market a couple of years ago, when it's more competitive, when you had 10 to 15 offers, 1% wasn't enough. Individuals were offering more to just show that as basically increasing the attractiveness of their offer. So it's totally up to you as a buyer what you would like to offer for that. And you have things such as your closing date and your possession date. So just because you close on a certain date doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take possession that day. 9 times out of 10, you're going to take possession the same day that you close. But sometimes the seller may not be able to get out in time or may not be able to move in time. So sometimes that possession date you may offer to extend the possession date to allow the seller more time to exit the home. Also, with the closing date, sometimes for competitive offers, on average, it's going to be about a 30-day close, but sometimes you can offer, just depending on how fast your lender can get closed, sometimes you can speed that up, especially if it's, in a multiple offer situation and you're trying to make your offer look more attractive, you can offer to speed that time up, but it's really just going to be based on what your lender can do. So you like to be a little bit uh, cautious when it comes to close date because you just want to make sure that you're able to close on time. Also, you have seller concessions. So seller concessions are basically any concessions that the seller is willing to provide. So let's just say towards your closing costs. Let's just say, so typically with the closing costs, let's just say typical down payment. Down payment on average for a first time home buyer will be, let's just say 3.5%. So 3.5% of the purchase price. Well, there's also closing costs associated with the closing of a home, which includes all of the fees that it takes to actually close the loan. So it could be title fees, your loan origination fees, just any fees that are associated with closing the home. And that's on average roughly about 2 to 3%. Well, the seller has the ability to give money towards your closing costs. And they can do that in the form, you could say, hey, I'm offering, let's just say that same home that you were going to purchase that you saw was $250,000. You got a home under contract for $250,000. Well, you could ask and say, well, hey, we're going to offer, let's just say you see a home that's listed for $250,000. You're going to offer, you're extending your offer to buy that home for $250,000. But you're going to say, hey, I'd like some money back kind of towards my closing costs. You're going to ask or request the seller for $5,000 towards closing. This is a percentage of your closing goods. This is a percentage of your closing costs. So you're going to ask them back for $5,000. Well, the seller has the ability to give you that $5,000, or they could say no. I always typically like to ask, if it's not a multiple offer situation. So back when it was, 2021, 2022, 2020, like that was off the table. You weren't able to, like, seller concessions were almost basically non-existent. But now we're keeping back into a time where seller concessions are most definitely back in play. I actually just closed a home a couple of months ago, and I was able to get my client, I believe we got her back $9,500 towards her closing. So it is very much still prevalent. You can ask that back, and it will be paid back or deducted from your down payment and closing costs at closing. Also, you have what's called a due diligence period. So this is going to be when you're doing your inspections. And basically, you have an opportunity. It could be 3 days, could be 1 day, could be 2 days, 7 days, whatever amount of days. I say on average about 7 to 10 days, but less when it was, a more competitive market. But this gives you ability to go in and just basically check the bones and structure of the home and make sure that you're getting a home that's safe and sound. I always recommend that my clients get an inspection because it's a couple of $100s up front, but it can save you thousands on the back end. So you cannot go wrong by getting a home inspection. I had a client who got her home under contract, beautiful townhome, went in, had my inspectors go in, check the home. We got the report back. Turns out she had plumbing throughout the home that would need to be replaced. Didn't need to be replaced that day, but it was some bad pipes throughout the house where at some point it would be required for her to replace all of the pipes in the home eventually. So her being a first-time home buyer, I did not want her going in having to, you're already coming out of pocket paying this money up front, but then also to have the possibility or the risk that your pipes could just go out on you and you have leaks throughout the house that will require you to undergo a major repair. So decided to walk away from the house and we were able to find her dream home a couple of months later. Took some time, but she was patient and we got there. You're going to run into some of these things as you're looking for a home. I would not let that deter you, but I would just say if you can get an inspection, go ahead and get it. Of course, you pay a few $100s up front, but it can save you $1,000 down the road. So, something to think about. And then special stipulations is just anything else that isn't within the normal standard kind of contract language. Um, you're looking at things like, let's just say the home has a washer and dryer that is not a part of the regular appliance package, but you would like that to remain with the home. You can ask in the special stipulations to have that remain in the home. So those are some things that you can do, or some things that you will come across on the purchase and sale contract. And then the final phase, which will be within 30 days or so, which will take about 30 days or so on average. It could be longer, could be less, just depends. This is going to be your close phase. And the close phase is what I call, from your bank account's perspective, your hibernation slash consistency phase. You're going to become a little bear like Winnie the Pooh. You're going to go in and you're going to hibernate. You're not going to do anything major on your bank account. You want your bank account to appear as consistent and as quiet as possible. No going in and making big purchases. No large deposits, at least not without speaking to your lender first. No closing accounts, nothing that would affect your credit. No co-signing on loans, no anything. You want that account to appear as seamless as possible. Your bank account is going to be reviewed 2 times. Time when you first go in and apply with that lender. And I did not mention that when you're going to apply with the lender and they pull your credit, make sure that you have a 45-day period for them to run your credit. Make sure that you shop around when you're doing your shopping to find your single lender. Make sure that you do that within a 45-day period, so it's only one hit to your credit. One inquiry will be on your credit. Otherwise, you'll have 10 or 15 different inquiries because you're doing a home search. So keep that in mind. But nothing that's going to affect your credit. You want to make sure that you are consistent as possible. They're going to go to your bank account the very first time when you're doing your initial check and you get your pre-approval. They're going to look at your bank account, review your bank statements, and then they're going to do it again right before closing. So you want to make sure that you haven't had any wild swings or anything in your bank account during that time period. If you have a large deposit that you would like to include in your bank account, and that money, so let's just say on average every month you have $2,000 coming into your bank account consistently, 2,000, and all of a sudden they see a big $10,000 transaction on your account. That's going to raise a red flag. That's going to raise a huge red flag. So in order for that not to happen, remember when you turn in your bank statements, it's going to be a 2-month period. You just want to go ahead, if you do have money that you want to use towards closing and you don't want to be questioned by the lender, go ahead and put that money into your account and let it sit in your account for 2 months before you go talk to your lender. That means if you're going to talk to your lender in December, you want to have had that money put into your account. What is this? December, November, October. So October. I think you want that money. Yeah, that money should have already been in your account by October. That means when you go in December to talk to that lender, that money's already been in your account for 2 months and it's now seasoned and they won't question you about it. So that's just something to keep in mind. Other than that, don't do anything major that's going to draw any red flags and wake up a sleeping giant. Call up the lender. All right. Seller accepts your offer. You are now under contract. Lender sends your initial document. So that's all of the documents that we talked about before: your credit profile, your W-2s, your tax returns, your bank statements, and your pay stubs. and any additional information. Throughout that process, underwriting may or may not contact you for additional information. Maybe you've gotten laid off and they need some type of letter or reasoning for that layoff period, or they need some type of explanation. Just make sure you're on top of that when your lender is reaching out. Make sure that you have some type of speed on getting those things or returning those things, because you don't want to slow up the process. Home inspections, again, we talked about that. That is the structure of the home. On average, it's an upfront cost about $350 to $400. It really just depends on the size of the home, so it could be more, could be less. Title search, again, it's going to be from your closing attorney. They want to make sure that that home is free and clear to sell. I had a client that went under contract, married for decades to her husband. Her husband passed away, unfortunately. And we got the home under contract. And it turns out, once the home was under contract, we found out that the title wasn't clear. Wife's name wasn't anywhere on the title. And we had to find an we had to find an attorney. That we had to extend the process. Like, we ended up closing it eventually, but we had to go through the whole process. She had no idea that she wasn't on the title. So want to make sure that the title, closing attorney is going to check for that to make sure that you have a clear title to sell your home. Conditional approval, again, all of this information that we've covered before with the bank statements and everything that the lenders need, that conditional approval will give you your budget, estimated down payment, and everything that you need to know. Home appraisals. Home appraisals are basically checking the value of the home. This is ordered by the lender, and on average, it's about $500. Again, that is another upfront cost, and this is going to determine how much the lender will approve on the purchase price of that home. So basically, you want your appraisal to either be equal to the purchase price of the home, or whatever price that you offer to pay for the home. Whatever your loan amount is going to be, you want that appraisal to either be higher or equal to that. You do not want that appraisal coming in under, because the budget will only lend as much as the home is valued or worth. When it comes to an appraisal gap, sometimes there may be an appraisal gap. Let's just say you got a house under contract for $300,000. Got an appraisal. The appraisal came back at $290,000, which is $10,000 less than the offer price. Well, you have a couple of scenarios that you can do. In this instance, that $10,000, we need to somehow figure out how to get that $10,000 gap covered. Now, one, you can offer to pay the full $10,000 upfront, out of pocket. Two, you can offer to go back to the seller and ask, can you guys meet in the middle? Maybe you pay $5,000 towards it and they pay $5,000 towards it. Another option would be to ask the seller to reduce the sell price of the home. So it's not worth $300,000, it's only worth $290,000. Can we reduce the sell price of the home? You have the ability to go back and negotiate once it's under contract. So first off, let's start at the due diligence period. When you go under contract, that due diligence period is a time that allows you go in and do your inspection, but that's also a time that allows you to get out of the contract risk-free. You're able to get your earnest deposit back and get out of that contract and move on. Well, once you're past that due diligence period, now you're completely binding. The only other period that you have the ability to exit the contract risk-free is the appraisal period, but that's only if if the home doesn't appraise and you can't come up with some type of negotiation for the appraisal. If the seller decided not to reduce the home or the price of the home for the $290,000, you can at that point decide if you want to pay that $10,000, or you simply walk away from the contract and you will receive your earnest deposit back. I have had these instances. I have had an instance where the home didn't appraise. The seller, I was able to get them to reduce the price of the home. They didn't want to do it, but they ended up eventually just doing it. And we were able to close. So those are some instances where the home may not appraise, but you do have options. All right, so then you want to review your final ALTA statement. 3 days Before closing, you will get your Alta or receive your Alta statement from your lender, and it outlines everything that you pretty much saw in your initial estimate. You're going to know what your estimated mortgage, or not even estimated, it's going to be your final mortgage payment. You're going to know what your exact down payment will be, how much you need to come or will be required to come out of the pocket to pay towards a home. It will have every single item listed that goes towards the closing of your home. All the details in place at this point. Closing attorney has gone through title fees, all fees, anything that needs to come from both yourself and the seller. All of these items will be listed on the offer statement. It should be provided to you at least 3 days prior to closing. And then from there, you sign final closing documents and you receive your keys and you are officially a homeowner. So this is your game plan. If this video was helpful, please hit the like button, share. It helps the video to grow. I will talk to you guys soon.